we could do that during deliberations.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Was it
You ready? Everybody up here ready? All right. The time is 7:03. Everybody please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for coming tonight. Budget presentation is tonight from the Board of Education. Next item on the agenda is public comment. We will have two public comments tonight. We do a first public comment before presentation and a second public comment afterwards. Public will have 2 minutes to speak. Give your name and address for the record if you wish to speak. So first public comment going once. First public comment going twice. First public comment going 3 times. First public comment is closed. All right, before we move on to the presentation, I just want to introduce everybody up here. Down on my far left is Lucy McConaughey. We got Jim Cretella, Bev Kennedy, Kristen Hanowitz, Carol Mordowanek, Tom Schutte, and Tracy Rappa. And I'm Chairman Richard Demko. I seem to forget to mention that every single meeting. All right, next up, Board of Education. Who would like to speak first?
I would just like to introduce all of us, if that's okay. Dr. Compton, the school superintendent, I would like to introduce our Board of Ed. This is our Board of Education budget for tonight. I have here with me Lisa Harley, Lisa Bruno, Esther Mello, Chris Champagne, and Shannon Levy, and Gloria Scully. So I just want to say a big thank you. In regards to administration here tonight, the board, principal of Seymour Middle School, David O'Leckman, principal of CLS, Jennifer Lopresti, Sue Feige, director of curriculum and instruction, and Dr. Chris Bull, director of special services. And just walking in, Stefan, yeah, who is our other board member as well. And of course, Gucci, our business manager, is back here with me as well, and he'll be also in the part of the budget presentation when we get into the actual budget and expenditures and so forth and so on. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Champagne, will you be giving the presentation?
Yeah, so this year was pretty,
Yeah, come on up.
YouTube, well, all right.
And just give your name and position for the record, please.
Sure. Chris Champagne, Board of Ed Chairman. We'll go through all the individual items, but I have to say this one was pretty smooth for the most part. The superintendent put together a real thorough budget. We did make a couple changes, come back. First pass was a little bit high, we did come back. But I think it really encompasses everything we're looking for. For the most part, we could always want a little bit more. But it keeps things pretty steady with a few obligations that we have. So the initial, everybody, okay, that's happening. The initial budget, if we wanted to go through the increases, we can do that. The initial ask was $1,809,942, which is a 4.7 increase. Most of our increase is in staff and insurance, as everybody would probably assume. A few things that we're adding to this budget. We have a classroom teacher for the middle school, that's based on enrollment. We also have an English language learner teacher that's being added, and that's due to the state mandate and the numbers that we have at Chatfield. And then something that's added to the budget, which we already did for this year, was permanent building subs. The cost of our substitution line item is through the roof, and we're hoping, well, we know, because Mr. Bucci run the numbers, that by placing 3 permanent building subs in the building will lower what it's costing us to maintain substitutes, which right now the majority of that cost is coming from current teachers who are using the prep. That's pretty much it at a highlight. Everything else, for the most part, is the same. We did add, I think it was $80,000 for the technology, the cameras. We have a 2-for-1 grant from the state that allows us to add much needed cameras in the schools. We pay 80, the state will reimburse 160 for us. And that's an ongoing grant. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I see everybody's got the budget, the pie charts. We won't really go through everything. We get all night, but if you have any questions for me, happy to ask away.
Okay. All right, we'll start on my far left. Lucy, do you have any questions for
Well,
Mr. Champagne?
I actually worked off of the original budget here, so I at home beforehand, and this is totally new tonight, so I'm trying to adjust from what I was looking at previously and what I have in the front of me right now, because maybe some of these might be answering some of my questions.
That
So
page
I'd
there,
I'd
Sorry.
rather go on and then maybe come back to me later if you want.
Okay.
That's-
yeah, that page you have there and the next page is probably the 2 most informative.
Yeah, because I had highlighted some line items, and in here they're incorporated, so there's some things.
So what we have in our binder
Mhm.
is the same as what's in this binder. The numbers haven't changed or anything.
Right, line item wise.
Correct.
Yes, I understand that, but this here combines some of the line items
Okay,
all together and
I get where you're coming from.
not broken down to individual line items.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's like all staff is included or other things that I had questions on. That is a specific line item rather than incorporated.
Right, the bar graph is more consolidated. Yes.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Jim?
No questions at this time?
Bev?
I don't have anything at this time.
Nothing at this time. Kristen?
Just in terms of, you touched on the ELS being a mandate, are there any other, like, unfunded state mandates that you can foresee that might be coming down for this budget that maybe aren't budgeted for right now?
Well, special ed is always the thing. We don't know what the year holds for special ed. So you could get a family that moves in from another town that has outplaced students. We have to take care of those children. You know, if I don't know off the top of my head that where Bungay is for ELL students, but I think that line is really close. I think it's 17, 18 students.
Yes.
So while the number's 20, you have to supply an ELL teacher. Bungay's at 18, but we didn't put that in the budget.
And then just in terms of equity across all of our schools, is there anything where you see shortfalls that maybe you didn't put in this budget that we should have on our radar? Are all our kids kind of getting the same services? Is there things that were left out, just from a budgeting standpoint?
What's been presented to us, we included the items that we felt. I would leave that to Dr. Compton and those that are involved in the day-to-day. But everything that she presented to us, while we added a little bit to it, is we've included everything.
Okay, thank you.
Carol,
No questions at this time.
Tom, Tracy.
So in the presentation on page 3, it shows the budget year over year from 18 through 25. Do we also have the enrollment from those time periods?
We should.
I didn't see it in our,
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
she's
saw
working off
the
of this.
screen scroll by.
Yeah,
I think it's
Yeah,
down.
it's in there.
I can't see it in our package.
I've been discussing more in the PowerPoint presentation in regards to the total enrollment for 2000 and some kids. We have a breakdown of all of the schools, and then we also have what is prepared that's the projected enrollment.
So that's in the book that was just
Yeah,
handed out?
That's in the notebook and also in the pages aren't numbered,
Yeah, on
Right.
ours, but not.
but it's
You-
in the number.
It's,
Okay, well, I don't have a copy of that, so.
If you scroll up in the presentation, more, that's the projected enrollment, and the one before it's the historical.
No, but they got books, we didn't get them. No, we didn't get the binders.
We'll give you a copy of that.
I'm just trying to do a compare of, you know, what the enrollment has done based on the budget increase. And I also have a question with the SMS, the middle school classroom teacher and the ELL teacher. That's for one teacher, 108,000 for each,
It's salary benefits.
salary and benefits.
And we assumed, the dual coverage for health insurance on all of ours. Some may take family, some may be single, some may not take it, so we say right, it's how we always budget for
Yes.
dual, right? Or when we're putting an item in.
Okay. And what step is that?
I believe that's masters, 6 or 7 is the step. Again, sort of middle of the line. Mid-six, yeah,
It's
6,
step.
7.
Approximately around the step 7.
And you said that the 3 permanent subs will save,
Yeah,
so is that savings that came out and then you added this in, or?
right, because it's, yeah, we have to add it into the budget, but we're assuming that cost will offset probably more than half of what we're looking at for the substitutes that we're paying for now. See, you have teachers who get paid per block if they substitute a class, at $42.50.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know you did.
We did the
last night, I
estimated.
didn't realize.
Yeah, let Mr. Bucci
Okay,
explain,
that's
because
fine.
we did a complete,
Yep.
data analysis on the cost and why it's better to go with 3 permanent subs.
Okay. Here,
Yeah.
come on up to the microphone. Give your name and position.
Salvatore Pucci, I'm the business manager for Summer Board of Education. as it relates to providing substitute teachers when we have absences. So we did a real deep dive on this to try to figure out why it's costing us so much money. So between September and January, we had approximately 1,673 classes that were not covered by teachers who were absent. There are three ways we've been covering substitute teachers. One is we are paying existing teachers per the collective bargaining agreement $42.45 per hour for teacher class, which is about 50 minutes, when they use their prep time to substitute for a teacher who's been out. We also employ outside temporary staffing agencies when we can't get enough in-house teachers to cover these classes. And the third is we are actually employing daytime substitute teachers that we were paying at the rate of about $115 an hour. Now, part of the problem with that, per day, thank you, per day. The problem with that is $115 per day comes out to about $15.83 an hour, which is only 14 cents more than minimum wage. It's been extremely hard to get people to fight that because it's not worth the time. So recently, the Board of Education considered increasing the daily rate so we could be more competitive with surrounding towns and actually attract people into taking permanent building sub positions. Now, you're paying someone $170 a day, let's say, which is 1.5 times minimum wage, which roughly equates to 5-6 classes that a person could cover in a particular day. It's going to eliminate our need to incur much higher costs. What we're trying to do with these permanent full-time building subs is eliminate the negative variances that we're having. We have a budget for substitute teachers. We keep going over the budget for substitute teachers. We believe that with the substitute teacher budget that we have in here and adding these three permanent building subs, we will be able to contain our costs and control our costs. And we are hopeful that we're not going to have to rely on these more expensive options that we've been using because, especially in the elementary schools, in a high school, let's just say if a student class is canceled, maybe they just let them all roam around high school and they actually didn't have somebody covering the class. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope not.
When it comes to the elementary schools, in the middle school, there has to be somebody in that room standing in front of that class. And so what I've heard from the educators is this is disruptive and it causes us to be put in a position on a daily basis when we're having 12, 13 absences, perhaps on each and every day for whatever reason, excused absences, sick time, FMLA, etc., that we can create some stability within the schools as it relates to trying to fulfill our needs. And that's why that request is there.
Thank you.
And it's also important to note too, when you don't have in-building subs from the agency or subs from the sub-pool, a lot of times, especially at elementary level, we'll combine classes. So, you get 30 plus kids in a classroom for a day. And even though we've raised the sub-pay rate, it still is cheaper. And this is the individual sub-pools, the ones that get the call in the morning. It's still cheaper than the other two options of having current teachers or the agency come in. So like Sal said, we're trying to build up that pool to eventually save some money there.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Bucci, while I have you up here, could you just give us maybe an approximate savings that you're thinking of by hiring permanent building subs?
Well,
Like
again,
a projection?
the savings is to enable us, when you look at the budget that we have in here now, we have projected in our budget next year for substitutes of certified staff. The budget has a total of $373,000 proposed for next year. That includes the $90-some-odd thousand that we're proposing for the addition of the 3 permanent building subs.
Mhm.
Okay. Our hope is that we are going to be able to live within. If you look, for instance, where we are right now, where we were projected, for instance, as of December,
Mhm.
We were already at $324,000, or $44,000 over the budget we're operating on this year. If you continue the trend of what we've experienced so far since September, I'm expecting us to far exceed this $44,000 number. In fact, this was December, this was 4 months, September, October, November, December, there's still 6 months left to go. So we're trending toward a significant budget deficit in substitute teachers. What we're trying to do is eliminate the deficit. So when you talk about savings, the savings comes in eliminating the constant over budget that we're experiencing, because we continue to budget the same amount every year, hoping our situation is going to improve, but it doesn't, because the competition not only for teachers is strong in shortage areas, it's also strong for the substitute teachers that we're trying to recruit in competition with the other school districts in our area. So I wanted to make sure you didn't look at this as, gee, we're trying to just add on 3 substitute teachers, but we're gonna have a savings in another area. What we're gonna eliminate is the deficit.
The deficit, okay, so the deficit is your savings.
The deficit is our.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, we'll go back to Lucy. Lucy, turn on your microphone.
Sorry.
Here, try holding it there. There it is.
Okay, on the 3 substitute teachers that you're looking at, you're going to be paying benefits.
Yeah, well, yes. The way we've structured this is, if you are a permanent building substitute teacher,
Mm-hmm.
what we've done here is we've estimated only for single coverage for a permanent building substitute. That's the only option that they could possibly elect. We don't use dual coverage or family coverage. Now, our cost for
Right.
single coverage is $12,000.
I understand that.
$12,000 for the year. For family, it's double added. It's almost 2.5 times that. So we don't necessarily assume that everyone coming in here as a substitute teacher is going to take our insurance. We kind of like say, okay, 1 out of 3 probably will. The other 2 are probably retired, maybe collecting or on TRB, maybe being able to get their benefits elsewhere, maybe on Medicare or whatever. So we try to be a little frugal in saying that we won't necessarily provide that insurance to all the people we try to hire, just some of them. And I believe in this case, we only factored in the cost of 1.
Now, I have a couple more questions on this also. Are you looking on the permanent substitute teachers to be certified?
Yes, there are, I would say certified, yes, in the permanent side. I'm not, the daily building substitutes, we have certified and non-certified. But as far as the permanent building substitutes, we are looking for certified teachers so they can fulfill any class requirement that we ask them to fulfill on any given day in any given school.
But yet, with your other substitute teachers, if they're not permanent, they don't necessarily have to have a college degree? Or a college degree but no certification?
But not a teaching certificate.
Classroom substitute, I'm asking, if you have a classroom substitute that you call, does that classroom substitute that you bring in have to be a college degree? 4 years?
Yes, at this time.
Because I know some of the other districts are using non-degree people to substitute teaching.
Well, if they're doing an emergency waiver.
Right.
State Department of Connecticut, the State Department of Education, just let me explain that the 3 permanent subs again has to be, they have to have a teacher certification.
Okay,
Because it's a little confusing with permanent subs. And the regular subs is only, again, you have a college degree and you go through the process and make the application. This is going to be a win-win for us with the Board of Education making this adjustment in pay, because this has not been increased since 2017, and a lot of the districts had a much higher substitute rate, and that's why people were going other places. So we feel this is a win-win. Most school districts, not only in Connecticut, but throughout the country, have
permanent building subs, one per building at least, because you usually always have at least one person out, and it helps to provide stability for the kids. They see that same familiar face. and they become
The only reason I'm asking this is because you might be able to get your permanent substitutes with people that are not looking for a job, but as an extra job,
Exactly.
and not include benefits even in their contract, so that you would not have to be paying benefits. This way you could have the permanent and not pay benefits, because most of these people might be looking for an extra income in the family. Someone that early retired, or any other reason that might want to bring an extra income into the family. I'm looking at the benefit package right now. That makes a big difference. And the other thing too, I had asked also, if we could have a breakdown of your steps, the individual steps, and what the cost is, and if you're, yeah, and what you would be looking at. Would the substitute be coming in at a certain step? Is it going to be a different contract altogether?
Yes, it's an established salary rate.
A separate contract
The
altogether?
substitute teachers have a fixed.
Which would have nothing to do with, once they're in there looking at the teacher's contract and having to basically follow that.
They're totally separate,
It has nothing to do with the teachers' collective bargaining agreement.
Okay,
totally separate.
that answers some of my questions. But I'd like the step contract, because you have everything bundled here, and we have no idea of what anything is or where. I mean, when it's hard to figure out, because I know the STEP program is a little difficult, because some of it includes, if you have a master's and come in
Exactly.
hired at a master's,
You're right.
what step do they come in at? And who comes in at step one, and what the steps are. I don't want to know the teachers' names or anything, but just the approximate amount on each step that's being paid out.
What we can do in regards with that, I've actually have all 5 contracts. And of course, this is a big part of the budget. As you know, 77% is personnel. And when the Seymour Board of Ed, everybody puts his budget together, we have to be in compliance with the contracts. I think it would be very good for you to get an opportunity with some of these pages of summaries to see. For example, with our teachers, in regards, there's a step 1, they go all the way from step 1 to step 14. Then you're paid whether you have a bachelor's, a master's, or 30 hours above a bachelor's, and also a 6-year, which is a master's above a master's.
Right.
And I'd like to point out this budget, and this is not just here in Seymour, but in any other public school district
Right.
in Connecticut. Our step 14, for example, 50% of our teachers fall in that category. And as Mr. Bucci goes across and figures each of the salaries, it's based upon this and these contracts. Same thing with the administrators' contracts, as well as custodians, the paraeducators, and the secretaries. So it's very crucial for you to see this, because I think that really gives you a sense of why are these salaries the way they are. And I want you to know too that we're getting ready to go into contract negotiations actually starting this summer for the teacher contracts, because they have to be, the process has to start a year before. So that's something our board has spent hours on the liaison committee, that's part of negotiations. Spent a lot of time with these contracts, and so did their union representatives with each contractual group. So I just wanted to, that's why I brought this book, in case there be a question. We can email you what these are, what these particular steps are, because I think that's where you're going. Because when you get to step 14, then we're over $100,000 per teacher. And this is not just Seymour, this is true in Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. Because these people are credentialed, they work for years, and this
Could
is.
you give us a copy And also, could you break down for the current year, how many people you have in each step? Just so that we have an idea, because we as a board would like to know what that package is costing us even before we go into budgets. So that we know as soon as we're going into budgets, well, contractually, this is gonna cost us in this particular department because of the contracts. You see where I'm going at? So we already know that that particular section is going to have an effect on your budget before we even go into it. So if you could just break it down, just to some degree, on, how many people are in each step, that would give us a better
We can give you-
idea of what's
right.
going on.
No, we can give you all of that, it's in some of those categories, but specifically each step is where it falls,
Thank you, I
how many
appreciate it.
teachers and all of that, okay?
Yeah, and, you know, it might be helpful, to give some perspective on the 4.7% increase on the budget. Of where that comes from. When I prepared my original budget for Dr. Compton back on December the 11th, I gave you a budget of 3.9%. And the 3.9% was all of our contractual increases across the board based on collective bargaining, based on what we believe the health benefit increase was going to be,
The
based on,
estimation about
you know, we have the
12%.
same plan as the town has for health insurance, et cetera. We're all facing probably a 12.9% increase for the second year, of the second year of the United Healthcare arrangement. We have a 4% across the board increase in transportation costs with All-Star Transportation, which when that contract was negotiated was a home run, because there were other districts that were paying far more than 7%. So when I gave it the budget, I said, here's where you are to keep the lights on, status quo, with where we are right now, just factoring in what it's going to cost us to maintain what we have here. And then I handed Dr. Compton and said, okay, now I guess you'll need to figure out what mandates you need to satisfy, what are the critical needs of the schools, and then she sat with the educators and they came up with essentially only about another 0.8% to get to the 4.7, which are the items here of the classroom teacher, the ELL, and the 3 permanent building subs. So when you look at these lines where it says $419,000, and it's a 1.1% on that first line here, that's
That's their
just
bar chart.
taking teachers and administrative staff that are currently employed and are moving a step in the subsequent year, and what is that increase? Now, teachers were running at about 2.9% overall, and that's a 2-component part. The first component is, let's say you are a Master's 6 this year. Next year, you're gonna be a Master's 7. So now, not only did you have an increase in the Master's 7 line from the prior year at 2%, you got a 1.9% increase because you moved up a step. So you kind of get 2 factored increases when you're a teacher in a teacher contract. It's the only contract that works that way. The other contracts that have steps, when you move a step, but you only get the step increase. So when we look at, and by the way, I'd like to also comment that back in 21, shortly before I got here, the Board of Education had concluded the teacher contract that we're currently in that expires on June 30th of 25, the last year of that contract. That was a stipulated settlement. That went to arbitration. So we had gotten to, the board had gotten to a point where they simply couldn't get agreement. And they had to go and get a stipulated settlement. And the problem we're hearing now is as we go into negotiations is, and I think it's Bruno here who made the comment that the rates that other towns are seeing in their contractual obligation as it relates to contracts currently in negotiation is a big number.
It's really basically 12%.
Can you
There are no, come up and just address the importance of
And again,
contracts.
everybody is going to go into negotiations in good faith.
Just
Kristen
state your
Bruno,
name, right. Thank you.
Kristen Bruno, board member. Everybody's gonna go into negotiations in But in, the most basic terms, we're in a teacher shortage. Thus the conversation around budgeting for subs, it's supply and demand. So every district is trying to attract and retain teachers, and so that
It's a
relates to higher
competitive
costs.
It's a competitive market, and I can tell you a lot of them have settled. I know that Shelton recently, some other places, and your district as well. A lot of them are, that have settled in the past, and it's going up because of competition and the shortage area. So probably estimating, who knows, what percent may have to go into mediation arbitration. But you want to keep your good teachers, you want to keep your great school system. It's
But I
very
would
competitive.
appreciate a breakdown of the.
Oh, you're gonna get all of that, it's all yours upfront, that's why, Robert.
I'd just like to make one more point to you. All of our other collective bargaining, contracts that were negotiated that ran from 22 to 25 were held at 2.25% per year increases. We started with one collective bargaining unit, we were successful with that unit in getting 2.25, and then we parlayed that to each of the subsequent units. So the custodians, the nurses, the para-educators, I don't know what else we have. Anyway, all of them except for the teachers, even the administrators union was 2.25% who were held. When we were in these negotiations, I give tremendous credit to the subcommittee of the board that was having to go through this process
We have
because
all three of them here.
they were,
Stefan, Jay, and Krista, spent a lot of hours.
it was a deliberate attempt at avoiding arbitration, because that's never good, in my opinion. And it was to impress upon these groups, we can't sustain increases of 4%, 3%, 4%, 5% year after year after year. It's one thing to say, well, gee, we're gonna do a catch-up and try to get you up on par with maybe another district or whatever, but you can't embed into a contract percentages that you know you're not gonna be able to fund. That was my job, of being sort of the bad guy in the room of saying, you can vote whatever you want, we'll never be able to afford it. So, you did a tremendous job of holding down the cost increases, and as we go into the next round now, it's going to be the same battle. Everyone says it's rampant inflation, there's this, there's that. Well, the reality is, we can only afford to pay for what you can pay for. And so what we've tried very hard to do here is to contain the embedded increases that are in all of the contracts. And the only one that's over 2.5% right now is the teachers at 2.9, and that's because of the dual increase factor that's there for a teacher.
How it works.
Yeah, but when you,
Yeah.
when you settle a contract, you know what it's gonna cost you. 'cause that's
Absolutely,
right
yes.
here.
Well, 3 years, and
2 years?
we only do 3-year contracts.
Okay.
Okay, and
So you do
we're in
have an
three-
idea of
we're
what
in
it's
three,
gonna
but we're in
cost
year
you.
3 right now.
We're in
The
year
only thing is year 3.
and we'll be
Yeah, I
doing,
understand
Yeah,
that.
so, it is, and that's why when you look at, at the second line of that, and you look at the non-certified staff increase of 141,000, I believe it was, okay? That's your custodians, your paras, your secretaries, and everything else, and so those, by the way, the vast majority of our employees are teachers, as you would expect, which is why the first line is so much larger. But also, we've tried very, very hard to contain the contractual built-in increases that are in the contracts, and that's the 141,000.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim?
I'm all set.
Bev?
I don't have anything right now.
Kristen?
I'm all set.
Carol?
thank you.
Tom? Tracy? Okay. So are you going to go through a PowerPoint presentation or?
Kristen Harmley to come up and myself, we're gonna go through.
Actually, I only have 5 minutes, I'm sorry, I was at a work meeting.
Okay, Kristen, would you just come up and say a few words? Mrs. Harmley has been involved with the budget process ongoing for many years here in Seymour. She's probably definitely the master over all the years. She's had more experience with this. But I want to start back at the beginning of the PowerPoint, but before I do that, let's go over
You've already heard a lot of the details about our budget and answering and responding to some of your top of mind questions. And I'd like to take a step back and just talk to you a little bit about our guiding principles when we put together this year's budget, as well as budgets that you've seen us present in prior years. So we have 3 guiding principles that we all kind of ascribe to and got behind. Provide a high quality educational program that serves all students while advancing the district's goals over time. Identify and prioritize opportunities to improve operational efficiencies. We love operational efficiencies. We talk about them all the time, and you see that reflected in some of our shared services agreement with the town, and also the way we try to collaborate as we can with area and local districts, and to develop a budget that respects the taxpayer. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been on the Board of Education for 13 years. I sat up here in your seat in this role for 2 years prior to joining the Board of Ed. And I know that because of our dual budget vote that we do, it always seems to become taxpayer town versus Board of Ed. And those of us on the Board of Ed, we don't see it that way at all, as you might expect. We really do see it that a town can only be as good as its school system, and a school system can only be as good as its town. So when we improve our school system, we improve our town. And we saw how many people moved to Seymour from different places, New York being a primary one, over COVID-19. They had choices of where to go, and they chose to come here because of the community feel that we have in Seymour and because of the strength of our school system. So anytime we're faced with this idea of the town can't afford it, or it's not fair of the Board of Education to ask this of the town, we think it's a win-win when we support our schools and we support our students. And I appreciated your question about what did enrollment look like. Enrollment has been largely flat for the past 10 or so years, or at least to 2018. But I don't think anybody would think that, oh, that means expenses should be flat, right? Because for sure, the pace of inflation hasn't even kept up with our budget has not kept up with the pace of inflation, number one. But number two, I think all of us board members and teachers and people in your own lives can attest to the fact that today's children need more. They need more support. So even if costs did hold constant and there was no such thing as inflation, we would need more support services for our students. We talked a lot about substitute teaching roles. That's not just to save money. That's because when we have a qualified substitute teacher in our classrooms, our children learn more on that day. So it really is all about student learning. And I'll just wrap up by talking about some of the key drivers that have already been touched upon. Salary and benefit increases, preparation for increasing student needs and resources. I just touched upon that, but that includes social emotional development, behavioral health, as well as academic health. We are absolutely still trying to close the COVID learning loss gap. It is here, it is real. Special education costs, both in and out of district, transportation costs, and ongoing facility costs, which we would be happy to answer many more questions about, if not this meeting, then at a prior meeting, at a subsequent meeting, sorry. So I want to thank you guys for giving all of us the opportunity to speak. I hope I've set the stage for the collective mindset of the Board of Education as we approach the budgets. And I actually do have to leave. I have a focus group for work from 8 to 9:30, so thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
I'll continue with the PowerPoint presentation very quickly. I just want to first of all say what is most important, what our most precious resources, our most precious assets, as I say every year to this Board of Finance, are our children. And First Select Woman, Anne Marie says the same thing. What is the most crucial thing in your community, and to me this is one of the most important budget, because it's the budget for the future. It's the budget for our children. And I always speak from the heart when I talk about this budget and why it means so much. I am telling you, we have been extremely conservative. When we first looked at this, just trying to keep status quo, folks, as Salvatore explained, is 4%. Because just contractual agreements, 2.7, and you look at overall other percentages, 3.7. So just to showcase some of our things about our system, she just talked about the budget overview and what we talked about here. I'd like to go on to the next slide. in regards, just what our mission is, it's all about the kids, and it's to prepare them for the challenges of an ever-changing world. We're definitely in an ever-changing world. For those that do not know this, we just found out our top student at Seymour High School has just been accepted to Yale University. Our valedictorian last year, Duncan Krug, was accepted to Yale University.
Nice.
We do produce students that go to our Ivy League universities. And it's not just about Ivy League universities, it's about going to good schools. And it may not be a university or college track, it may be a vocational manufacturing track. So our mission, again, lives on, and it's what we try to stand by. So as we move on, just looking over this, what our purpose is, again, is for our college and career readiness. It was so good at the end of this past graduation to invite our board of select persons, our first select woman, and also our board of finance members and other people. So we want to invite our boards in the town, and first select woman worked with me with this, and we had quite a nice gathering to combine our boards and letting them celebrate. As some people say, this is the most important event in the town, and it is the most important event, is our graduating seniors. Our vision and strategic plan, I'm not going to get into that, I'm just going to tell you three things. It's student engagement, it's climate and culture, it's our community involvement. And here are our basic budget goals. Here's what's most important out of all of this. What comes first? Our students, from the boardroom to the classroom, every decision that's made at the board table and the decisions that you make in regards to our budget, it's all about the kids and what's best for kids and how we can better prepare them. These were the budget priorities as we went through a lot of this about trying to maintain effective class size, trying to provide the curriculum overall, and also trying to provide 21st century learning goals. We'll move on to showcase. These were the budget assumptions of what we're dealing with. Again, as Mrs. Harmon said, our enrollment has been stagnant. Basically, the most growth was in Chatfield and Preston 2 years ago when we had a lot of movement, people moving from New York, people buying more houses, and now the increase is at the middle school. So we're basically around 2,100. It varies from 2,000 some kids to 2,100. So just to talk about budget assumptions, our biggest cost increase, and this is not just Seymour, this is throughout all public schools in Connecticut. I'm sure you've seen any article that you'll pick up and you'll read about. They will tell you that special education costs, and we currently have a budget that's $8 million for special ed costs. A portion of the cost is for students who need to have out-of-district placements. So that's always a big cost. Here's just a nice chart on how we make decisions as a team and all working together. Just to move on now to showcase some of the other things in the presentation. This is just a historical enrollment. They've tried to estimate. Sometimes this company gets it pretty close, sometimes they don't. It's just showing our enrollment is just staying flat. It's not increasing much. There's more of homes built, there'll be more kids or more other types of housing. So I'd also just like to discuss, as we move on, we're past the enrollment now. If we can have the next slide up. This is what our current enrollment, elementary projected class size. This is something we do every year. If you're a grandparent or you've had a kid in the school district, you know that class size is important. So we always emphasize we don't go over a certain amount of kids in elementary classrooms. So as we move on, proposed budget. This is where we're at 4.7, and this is the increase, and basically overall, this is what we're presenting tonight. I'd be the first one to tell you, just as the board did as well, sure, we need a whole lot more, but we're not really staffed like a lot of other large school is also summed up in your charts. What are the costs? Staffing, that's contractual agreements, again, tuition, transportation, tuition, I'm talking about special education, and then again, special education. Insurance has went up some to 10%. So as we move on, here's the pie chart. This basically tells you the percentages, professional services, special ed, facilities, energy, insurance, and technology. This is something that Salvatore prepares that we put in our presentation every year. I'd also like to mention that our shared services has worked well. We're very pleased with our 3 that we share with the town. This is something that not very many school districts do. This is one of the first types of districts that do shared services with town employees both. This is the bar graph. That's most important. That's also in your budget, and it just gives a summation that we've already went over tonight. Health costs was 0% last year because of going with United Healthcare. And anytime you switch with a new insurance program in this year, and just the cost of healthcare cost, and it's probably going to be around 12%. Not sure. This again is what I always call the Cliff Notes version of the budget. So look at this very closely. This is what Salvatore and I always look at and always ask, because to me this is the nuts and bolts of the categories. Again, staffing costs, benefits and taxes, special ed, regular special ed, and then non-educational when you get into the energy costs and things we have to pay for. Again, I mentioned this last year, Mr. Bucci also mentioned it. We got the best contract with All-Star, and I appreciate All-Star Transportation so much. And it's just something I always like to say. They took care of Seymour because their main person that started out here with All-Star back in 1988 has always had a special place in his heart for Seymour. So with working with him, he really made it happen for us. And you know, sometimes relationships are important. So we're about getting ready for another transportation contract that will be coming up soon. Here's what we're most proud of. We'll go through this real fast. The accomplishments and progress made. This is systematic improvement, things that have been done thanks to our principals, our assistant principals, and our central office administrators, and our Board of Ed for supporting us. Next part is what we really want to showcase in regards, what are the great moments? This is where it's all about the kids and the ones that have graduated with honors. Again, we're very proud that Seymour was one of the 100 best high schools. I'm most proud of the Bronze AP School Honor Roll. That is something to be very, very proud of. The amount of kids that have taken AP classes really was outstanding, and we were recognized by the College Board the next place. So very proud of that. Again, that's what this talks about. Our kids, we actually honored them at a Board of Ed meeting, and this is crucial when they're going on to college. Also, I'm extremely proud of their manufacturing program. As you know, Mr. Paul Lucky, our assistant principal, along with the support of Mr. Floyd, the manufacturing program that he's put together at the high school has been exemplary. These are some of the great projects that Mr. Connors has done and the Board of Ed, and with the town working in regards to all of the schools and what else, other things that we need to work on, but it's good for you to see what has taken place. Communication is who do we do business with. This was a really good thing to just showcase. Thank you, Mrs. Feige, for the help on that. These are community and our school partnerships team. Jay Hatfield, you're a member of that board, and they do so much for the town. And so I think that's always important to recognize. Again, business partnerships, who do we work with? Workplace have been very good to us. Also, our academic career partnerships are dual credit. We not only do AP, but our dual credit partnerships. UConn is one, and we also have several that are listed here. And then as we move on about taking care of our kids, we everybody. That's the whole state of Connecticut till December. Now we're in a situation where people are having difficulty in paying for lunch. I mean, it's just happens. That's something that all schools are dealing with right now. Again, this is the honor of named Best U.S. High Schools, Connecticut. That was a proud moment, very proud moment. Also, Mr. Elect Wynn Chatfield, thank you for all of the hard work. Our staff, our outstanding teachers at Chatfield were recognized as a school of distinction. We have great staff, and those teachers are at Bungay, Chatfield, middle school, and the high school. I am very high on our staff members, and we're very lucky that we have them in our administration. We're very proud. First Select Woman honored Mr. Lucky. We're going to be doing another celebration as well at a board meeting, but the Board of Select Persons, it was a great night, and thank you, First Select Woman. So we're very proud of Mr. Lucky. Connecticut Assistant Secondary Principal of the Year 2022, Lauren Reed, was the Assistant Principal of the Year for Columbia Elementary. So these are great moments every day. This is about the kids. First Select Woman comes up and visits us, and we do a lot of things, projects together. Again, just showcasing our kids, our Board of Ed. And it's all about the kids. As a town, be proud. I'm proud. And I am telling you, with what we put in front of you tonight, this is what we need to operate our schools. We really need more, but this is what we absolutely have got to have to maintain the excellence and maintain the quality of education in Seymour. Because people buy homes, and they always check. They move into a community. There's two things they always check about. First of all, it's public schools. Public schools. So, again, community, you're only as good as your school system. And our kids are the future, okay? So, I'm proud to be here, even though I'm not originally from Connecticut. I'm proud to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we'll go down the table one more time. Lucy,
No, I'm good.
Jim,
I'm all set.
Bev,
I'm all set.
Kristen,
All set. All set.
Carol, Tom, Tracy.
Hi.
So if you just do simple math, right? So you take the 39,968,000 and you divide it by the 2,100 students, you get about $19,000 per student. Do you know how that compares to the surrounding areas?
I'll be frank, so that number is misleading, because not every student gets that amount. There's some students that get more. I understand it's an average.
Right,
Um,
that's why I said simple math.
so I believe ours per pupil expenditures 14. You know that number?
Yeah.
Our, there's an exercise that I go through with Dr. Boyle.
Oh, you come up here, so.
Yeah, with the special ed and
Well,
the
yeah,
formula.
Dr. Boyle will tell you these are very esoteric calculations that we have to do to demonstrate that we as a district are spending as much money on our non-special education students as our special education. And that exercise yields our cost per regular education student. Ours in the high school, for instance, is $14,000. Oxford is over $18,000 for the same student.
Okay.
So you have to separate the costs that pertain to a smaller number of students, both in district and out of district special education, from the overall cost of running your school district, so you can get what is the equivalent cost for a regular education student. We have about 350 total special education students in the district.
Yes.
Okay. So out of that 2,100 students, 350 of them will fall into the category of the special education cost structure. We put in here for your edification on page 21, I believe it is, a breakdown, for instance, of what it costs for us to send students out of district who are on placements. in out-of-district, public and private institutions. And if you see those costs, you'll see that they're, quite high. And we do get some assistance from the state. Problem we're experiencing here in Seymour is the same problem every other school district in the state is experiencing who's having an increase in costs. The state last year put $150 million into a fund, and they realized it was way short of the formula they were using to reimburse us. And so last year, for instance, on $400,000 of increased costs, we received $50,000 less. I don't really know what's gonna happen next year, but I do know that when you look at the costs that spiked, we went up almost $500,000 in total out-of-district special education costs. And I realize this is beyond your question, but it's giving you a perspective on
Yes, it is.
what we're trying to deal with in terms of controlling the costs
Right,
per pupil.
right, so that's what I was trying to see, like, you said $14,000
Yeah,
per
versus
student
18 in Oxford.
and 18 in Oxford, so like, what
I'm
is,
assuming they're doing the same calculations we're doing.
right, no, but that's good information, cause
We're
Like-
less.
I have a
Right.
really good, I believe it was 2023, the end of 2023, all the districts in the state. We are in line with a lot of the big cities, around 14,000,
it's like,
which is on.
like
the-
we do
the
every year, right? Like Kristen said, we have the town budget, the school budget, you know, I've lived in this town for, you know, many years, and the town budget usually passes, and the school budget fails, and it fails again, so I,
it's the
comparisons are
bottom-
good
it's
to
the
get
bottom-
out,
That per pupil expense is the bottom 10% in the state.
and that's information that should be given out to the town people, because I never knew the, you know, the difference of, you know, we spend 14,000 and Oxford spends 18. Why? You know, what's the difference? What's the inequities?
I can get that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I do not have any questions at this time. Everybody's good up here? Okay. Is there anybody else from the Board of Education that wishes to speak before we move on? I would just like to give the Board of Ed their own special time here. Nobody? Okay. All right, moving on to item number 5, second public comment. Second public comment going once. Second public comment going twice. Second public comment.
Facebook and speak at the same time, but that's okay. First, welcome, Anne Marie Jordonis.
Yes.
Thank you guys for tonight. Thank you, Board of Ed, for presenting tonight. Thank you, Dr. Compton. You know, I've been here almost every single meeting, except for one, right? And I wanna say there was a lot of good questions asked, a lot of great questions asked about why are the percentage increases, why, you know, especially with the pay scales. What we have to remember is last year, both budgets, the town and the Board of Ed budgets, failed up until 3 referendums. And we can keep cutting and keep cutting, but all we're doing is kicking that ball down the road. We have, a lot more people have moved into Seymour. In speaking to my building and my land use, we have more houses coming into Seymour. More people are moving into Seymour. Why are people moving into Seymour? Well, why wouldn't people move into Seymour? Right? Our schools, they are moving up. We have Yale, we have kids going to Yale, we have opportunities that some other school districts are not giving. Where they're able to take tech classes while they're in school, they're able to take college courses while they're in school. We have a paramedic class right at the Clinton Hospital. EMT classes that the kids are able to graduate high school, go right into nursing, and make almost $50,000 a year. What 18-year-old kid is making $50,000 right out of high school? Not many that I know of, right? So I just want to get out there that we have to be fiscally responsible to our taxpayers, but we also have to be responsible to a town, because in order to grow, we need to move forward. We can't just say, no, 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 right? But we can't always give. We have to think about this and be fiscally responsible, but we also have to move our town forward. We don't wanna be stagnant. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody else for public comment? Going once, going twice. Second public comment is closed. All right, item number 6, correspondence. Jason, have you gotten any questions via email throughout any of this so far?
I haven't received anything.
No? Anne Marie, have you gotten anything? No. I haven't gotten any love letters or hate mail or any of that either. That's a good thing. All right, item number 7, new business. Everybody direct your attention to the schedule, our budget schedule. So it says on here, Monday, March 4th, deliberations still. We have scheduled our strategic planning presentation for Monday, March 4th at 7 p.m. here. And then on Wednesday, March 6th, we will have our first Select Woman's budget presentation. Everybody up here good with that? All right. Any other new business up here? No? All right. Moving on then to item number 8. So we will close this portion of our budget workshop at 8:09. Thank you all for coming, and thank you everybody for tuning in at home. And we'll see you all on Monday. You know what we gotta get you is one of those holders